All right, can we get the slides on the projector? All right, cool. Good afternoon, everybody. All right, thank you all for joining me. I'm Wayne Neumaier, and despite his appearances, this is Weir at his third DroidCon. He's just in a little bit of a different costume today, and we'll go into more on how this is working out for him. So first off, glad you all could join us. We'll be talking about the Hamster Drive BB-8s. And before we get into the actual mechanics and the engineering and science and all the fun stuff, I thought it'd be fun to take a little review to how we got to where we are in terms of BB-8 building. So the very first public glimpse of BB-8, where we all suddenly started with, hey, there's this soccer ball droid, was when the teaser trailer was released in the day after Thanksgiving 2014. I remember I saw the trailer, I'm like, I gotta get my R2-D2 done for the movie premiere, and the rest of the droid building world went, oh, we have a new project to do. In fact, the very first fan-made BB-8 I can find a record of was Kurt Zimmerman, who had post of his droid on the RPF December of 2014, which, remember, that blurry glimpse is all we had, that like microsecond in the trailer, which is part of why the panels are blue, because, you know, color-wise, it kind of looked like that in the blurry trailer. Then April 2015, I think most of us know where we were that day. The practical Lucasfilm Disney BB-8 rolled out on the red carpet, basically showing that, hey, this is, you know, many of us knew this was a concept that could work in the real world, but it removed the, oh, it's all solely CGI. This is a thing that can exist, which basically started the BB-8 Builders Club of how do we make this work at the builder level. By that fall in 2015, you know, 10 long years ago, the future that Marty, which the fun one I just realized is the future Marty McFly goes to was 10 years ago. There's your I feel old moment for the day. So in that fall, several BB-8 toys became available, the Sphero, the Target, and you know, those are all rolling droids as well. And then the actual movie itself, Force Awakens, came out December of 2015. Our first actual live screen appearance of BB-8. Now, I am definitely not the first BB-8. I'm not even the second. To the best of my estimates, I might be in the first 10. Because for me, what happened was I wasn't even going to build a BB-8 yet. I had just finished my R2, and I'm like, I don't need to do this. But a couple things fell in my lap. I got in on the run on the California Quality Plastic Hemispheres, which we'll discuss here in a little bit. A friend of mine gave me the 3D print as of the head as a Christmas gift because she knew that was going to tip me over the edge. So thanks. And there was a run of decals, so I had the whole exterior of the droid basically sitting at my house. And I'm like, I can make this work. So got to work. And we'll see some of the pictures how he was built. And I've had a rolling BB-8 since basically 9 years ago now. So yeah, one of the oldest, and he's still trooping. So I believe he is the oldest trooping BB-8 in existence. And then after that, many new drive systems came up. 3D printers got way better, which leads me to my next point. If you were trying to build BB-8, like you're new to droid building, you've gone to a convention, where do you get to now with droid building, with the BB-8s? Now, most of you, if you join the BB-8 Builders Club today, you're basically going to be seeing a style of droid known as the axle drive system. And what that consists of is BB-8's ball is basically turned into a unicycle wheel. You have an axle that goes through the ball that suspends a weight, and the way the droid moves is it rotates that axle to move forward and backwards, and to turn, it banks. So by leaning the pendulum one way or the other, it causes the droid to bank and thus turn and move around. To roll on point, like to just do a 180 on, move on the axis and rotate on point, you have to use a flyweight system and balance out the momentum. So if you were trying to build a BB-8 today, chances are where you're going to start is you're going to print a Von Jet V3 sphere, which has kind of become the de facto ball for the balls. And then you're going to be looking at drive systems, either designing your own, or there's several options that were made or are being made. There's actually a whole bunch of carbon drives being built, actually physically being built this weekend, which has now become kind of the standard now. The carry drive, which kind of was the default one for a while, has become somewhat obsolete as Servo City has changed the products they sell. Thus, several parts have become obsolete. Toy-wise, there actually is one toy that operates on the axle drive premise, which is the Spin Master Hero BB-8. It was about yay tall, which pretty neat toy. So yeah, the modern BB-8s, the Builders Club 9, most of them are going to be axle drives. But there is another way to make this move. The Hamster drive system. And the Hamster drive system, much like the t-shirt I have on the first slide and in this picture, is a type of drive system where basically you have a robot contained within a ball, and by moving inside the ball, it makes the droid move. So much like how a hamster or a rabbit or any type of rodent you want to go with moves inside a ball, or or even the Bubble Boy people, you're just walking inside the ball, and that creates the movement. Now, this approach actually early on was the default approach a lot of people were trying to figure out to put in the BB-8s. Kurt Zimmerman's is a hamster drive mechanism. The droid I kind of based my design off of, Corey Pacchione, who created the Plan B decals you see on my ball. His is a hamster drive. And there's a bunch of even good YouTube videos. Like one guy even made a cardboard ball and some cheap motors, and it's a hamster drive mechanism. I know there are a few out there. The ones we'll be using as examples in this presentation mainly focus on my droid, who I call Weir, named after Andy Weir, author of The Martian. Partially because I was building the Martian suit from the movie and BB-8 at the exact same time. It's a coincidence they're in the I Wore It Better meme together. And the fact that, I had to science the shit out of it. And then the other hamster drive that constantly posts on the BB-8 Facebook page and has been trooping for many years now is David Alvarez's hamster drive mechanism, which I actually met at a celebration in 2017. So these both two droids have been going for quite some time now. So let's talk about some design considerations if you're going to design a hamster drive BB-8 system, or you're looking at, there aren't really any available at the moment, but if any do, like what are you kind of looking at and the differences between the hamster drive build and the axle drive build? So this is actually a picture of Weir in his early prototyping phase, along with a picture of the BB-8 Builders Club forum, which at some points does work. They've been having a lot of difficulties lately. All right, so first off, if you're designing a hamster-driven BB-8, you actually need to decide between two different approaches, a unidirectional and an omnidirectional. With the hamster mechanism, especially just looking at the ball, you have the option of can BB-8 move in any direction from where he's standing. So basically, if you look at some of the scrubber droids, does BB-8 have the capability to sidestep? And that was an early design consideration. So you can make a BB-8 do that with a set of Omni wheels that move in a, much like the scrubber droids, move in a combination, and you can move BB-8 and have them translate in any direction. Most builders, including myself, go for a unidirectional approach, which to turn, we have to basically do the same thing a tank drive system does, like an R2-D2 or a chopper or Wally, or name every other thing besides a scrubber droid, by turning one wheel faster than the other, and you have a defined forward and backwards. Personally, that one to me is a little bit simpler, especially if you're coming to a BB-8 from an R2-D2 build. And that also is going to give you a little bit closer movement compared to the movie droid, which, because it basically was a wheel, axle drive is going to be the closest to how BB-8 moves in the movie with the defined axle, but BB-8 could not translate side to side in the movie, so the the hamster drive doesn't translate either if you go with a unidirectional droid. So that's going to be the one we'll be focusing on today. Internal contact with the ball. So this is probably the single biggest difference between an axle drive and a hamster drive. The axle drive is fixed to the ball in 2 points where the axle makes contact. If anybody here has ever printed a Von Jet V3 sphere or even a V2, all the triangles are the same except for the two that are the hub that the axle mechanism has to attach to. The hamster drive mechanism has to ride on the entire surface of the ball, so it's actually sitting on the ball. So to keep it stable, you're going to need multiple points of contact with the ball. The absolute minimum, based on, you think about how a stool works. If it has 2 legs, you're going to fall over. If it has 3, you only fall over if you're really drunk. So you can get away with a 3-point of contact if you did the omnidirectional system, which I have seen a few YouTube videos on, at least in the prototyping phase. But for the unidirectional, you end up with 4 because you're going to have 2 points of contact for your drive motors, one for your left, one for your right. And then you're going to need basically 2 little guide mounts to kind of keep the hamster stable. So if you picture your hamster's just rather tall, if you don't have something forward and back, it's just going to lean over and uncenter itself from the ball. So you need 2 guide wheels, and they either can be omnidirectional omnidirectional casters. They can be like I have ball bearings, or they can even just be like a Teflon glide because you're not really putting much weight on it. It's just to keep the hamster centered in the ball. With the axles, there's 2 types of setups for your wheels, which you've seen in the previous picture. Let's talk about the ground parallel axle system first. So this is the case that basically you're doing the same thing as R2-D2. Your axles are horizontal and parallel to the ground when you're in a stationary position. So now you have your 2 wheels contacting the ball kind of at an angle because obviously the ball's not flat. Now you can be fancy and make wheels that meet the contour of the ball. This is what the Target toy does. This is what the Sphero does, which is what the diagram is up there. And this is also, if you've ever bought a BB-8 at Galaxy's Edge or adopted, I don't know what terminology they use, they have the little slanted wheels. They're great. They give more contact. Is that necessary? No. My droid, because unlike Kevin this morning, I actually do keep it simple, stupid. I just have Coulson wheels because honestly, that's what fit on the axles of the motors I bought for my droid. And it works fine. It grips and it propels the droid. Now, one of the things you want to keep in mind if you are designing a droid like this is where the wheels actually contact the ball. Because 2 things, it affects the hamster drive in 2 ways. One, it affects the gear mechanism, because if you think the gearing down of the motors, because if you think about a gear down mechanism, when you make the wheel bigger, you're increasing torque, but you're reducing the RPMs. So if the motor is closer to the center of the ball's axle, your motors would technically be spinning them faster, but you lose a lot of torque, where if they're lower, your ball is going to be moving slower, but now you have a lot more torque to actually make them move. The other thing I discovered, especially with my build, is the lower you can mount your axles, your contact points, the less strain you're putting on the ball. On the left side is my version 1 of the prototype of Weir. And you'll notice my Coulson wheels are almost like right on the midpoint of the Droid. And the idea was I was going to suspend, you know, the dumbbells and the batteries as ballast from the midpoint. And what I discovered is the ball kept splitting when the seam of the two hemispheres was vertical. And the reason is because if you think of the force vector diagram, the angle is just trying to pop the two halves apart. So the way I fixed this is what he eventually did is I just lowered the motors. So now his 2 points of contact are like right on the bottom, and it stopped the splitting problem altogether. Plus, it slowed down the Droid to give me better, when I had to do the coding for the stabilization loop, it actually helped me because now the motors weren't trying to go too fast, and it actually helped them kind of stay stable. So that's two big considerations. David's Droid uses a ball-type tangential axle system. So his motors are an angle and use omnidirectional wheels to make contact with the ball. One, it gives a little bit more cleaner contact with the ball because it's like actually like perpendicular to your drive surface, which is what wheels are designed to do. The other thing I really like about his drive system is because of those omnidirectional wheels, he actually gets a little bit of roll stability that I don't have because the hamster mechanism can like slide itself back to, you know, a stable position within the ball where, you know, if I push mine, he has to roll back because the wheels can't slide back and forth. So I really do like this design, but there's also the drawback of his has the same problem of if the wheels are mounted high within the ball, there's a lot of force trying to split the ball together, which you can deal with. It just is going to depend on your ball design that you use. The dome magnet system. Has anybody here actually built a BB-8 yet in the audience? Okay, what's the one question you always get everywhere you go? How does the head stay on? Magnets. Same deal here. We use magnets to hold the head on. Exact same thing. The one advantage I do like about the hamster system is because the ball is uniform thick, well, the ball is a uniform surface, you can actually have the internal mechanism for the magnet ride on the ball. When I've done axle drive systems where the axle is the head, the body magnet system is just fixed to the drive system, if you don't get that thing centered perfectly in the ball, well, if the head leans one way, the magnets are now far enough apart that the head falls off. With mine, the magnets on the inside just ride constantly on the ball, which not only helps with the fact my ball is not perfectly round, it keeps that constant distance, so the head is always the same force to the ball, no matter what orientation the ball is in. So a little bit of an advantage there. With that system, though, you do have to add a little slide joint in your system. So with my headmast here, you'll see I have a little piece of foam cushion and some rods, so it compensates with how the diameter of my ball changes when it rolls. Head movement. Not too much different from the axle drive systems. Now mine, I'm a very keep it simple. When I was designing my BB-8, and remember back then there wasn't really any other build to go on, I'm like, if it can roll, everything else is just bonus points. I don't need him to tilt his head. I don't need him to puppeteer. I just need him to roll. So I just have a physical mass holding the head up. And then I have a little servo there, so I can make his head look left and right, so he can technically strafe. Mainly, I wanted to be able to recreate that shot from the poster where BB-8's rolling next to Ray and looking at Ray. So I wanted to add that feature. You can add the full neck movement like you see in the axle droids. You just have to position servos and motors accordingly. You also need to make sure your drive system, you know where center is to compensate for, you know, where does the head end up when the hamster's in the ball. Sound. This is another one of those issues that kind of makes and breaks your decision of an axle droid versus a hamster droid. Now, the axle droids, most of them today are using transducers, which are mounted to the ball itself, which basically makes the ball a speaker. The Carius drive does that. Joe's drive allows that. Carbon does that. That's the go-to, and even I've now seen like Vader's do that with like making the chest armor with transducers the speaker. Obviously, we can't connect a speaker to the ball on a hamster drive, so we have to put it in the head. Dave is still using the transducer system and mounting that in the 3D print of the dome. I went with simple, and I just got a Bluetooth speaker and put it on my dome mechanism you'll see up there, and then I have a Bluetooth transmitter inside the ball, so it sends the signals to the Bluetooth speaker in the head. Is it going to be as loud as, you know, some of these 100-watt speakers we have in the R2s? No, but if a little kid's hugging the droid, they're going to hear it just fine. Ball options. So this is kind of the big hiccup with hamster drive mechanisms, because the axle drive, we have, you know, several ball options out there with the Bond Jet, the carry skeleton and the skins. I know Justin's working with, I don't know the official name of the ball, but like a new nylon type of design. So there's already a couple different options for the axle drive system. The hamster drive system, this becomes a make and break thing of if you kind of have to find the ball because your whole design is going to be built around that, where if you ain't found shit, you don't have a hamster drive. All right, so way back when the early days of the Builders Club, the go-to ball for BB-8 was the California Quality Plastics hemispheres. The story behind these is early on when people were trying to figure out what BB-8 was built from, they're contacting everybody who makes globes or hemispheres for you know, parks, aquariums, or submarines, at least the ones that work. And yeah, and yeah, the I'm an engineer. I handle failure investigations all the time. And basically, they found California Quality Plastics made the 20-inch polycarbonate hemispheres originally because Sphero contacted them and they wanted a full-size BB-8 for, you know, their showroom models. So they made the molds to do this. Well, then everybody's like, oh, we can turn this into a BB-8. So a lot of the early BB-8s, there was a run of these because, you know, the minimum order is 6. So there was a big run. That's why I came across a California Quality Plastics. And a lot of the early BB-8s, like the Ed Drive, if anybody remembers that, was the California Quality Plastics with the Plan B decal system. Now this has worked pretty well for me. My BB-8's been driving on it for 9 years now. Polycarbonate, it's durable, it's 1/2 inch thick, so it takes a beating. It's not going to crack because there's no print lines like 3D printed items. Honestly, the decals, no one has ever come up to me in 9 years and said, oh, it's stickers. Like, I still get compliments like, oh, it looks exactly like the movie one. I'm like, no, it doesn't. It's stickers. So it's worked well for me. However, there are a couple drawbacks. Now, first off, even if you can find the hemispheres, you know, because back then I didn't have a 3D printer, and back in 2016, 3D printers were right on that border of being from that's my hobby in itself to, hey, this is a tool I can use for my other hobby. So I built mine. In fact, my first DroidCon, my panel was BB-8 without the printer. The problem is you still need special machining because you have to CNC this wood ring to precisely position these aluminum dowel rods to keep the two hemispheres from rotating against each other and sliding. So you're still not out of the woods for specialized equipment. Luckily, in Huntsville, I knew a couple people that had access to it, and we were able to make the jig. Which also, the scariest thing is putting that on the hemisphere and then drilling into $600 worth of polycarbonate. Yeah, you hold your breath and you hope for the best. Obviously, it's expensive. Back then in 2016 money, it was like 600 bucks. I've contacted the company trying to get spares in case mine ever cracked. And unfortunately, they're not even going to touch it because no one really buys them anymore because of 3D printed options. And I'm not going to order 6 hemispheres. The other downside to the California Quality Plastics hemispheres is they're not perfectly round. If we call the seam the equator, the ball, my ball at least, is 1 inch taller than it on the pole than it is on the equator. So that's why I had to add that slide mechanism in my head, because the ball changes its diameter as it rolls. This is part of why my droid has a kind of a drunken wobble to it. Other than that, early on for found options was people were trying to acquire the 20-inch lamp globes, which I'm really curious how that industry reacts, because people were buying them to turn them into BB-8s, and before that, people were buying the 14-inch ones to turn into dead mouse heads. And I've seen a couple people use these. Now, they're much, much cheaper than the California Quality Plastic option. But the reason for that is they're super thin, they're blow molded polycarbonate. So, they're barely a 16th inch thick. They don't have uniform thickness either. They are much thinner in the equator than they are the poles. And the other problem is they're not really designed to be round. There is a neck opening when you buy these things because you're supposed to put a light bulb in them. So you have to engineer a hatch mechanism. So people have done that with styrene and vacuum forming. I've seen a few people do slush casting to make a panel door. And then Dave even went as far as wrapping it in a whole kind of semi-vacuum form skin to give the panel lines and some extra thickness. So it is kind of a pain in the butt, and David and I both would say there's much better options than trying to go this route. You'll see it on YouTube, you'll see them roll, but there are some better options. The Von Jet Hamster. So like I said before, the big common go-to for the axle drives right now is the Von Jet V3, which I have printed one. It prints great, and it is a great ball. But it will not work for a Hamster drive because the Hamster drive has to be smooth, at least relatively smooth on the inside and the outside. Now, there is a small group, David's among that group, that are prototyping a Hamster drive version of the Von Jet. So the way you get into it is one of the circle panels actually bolts on at the little fork thing that's in the middle of the panel. However, the issue they keep coming across with that design is because the Hamster has to roll over that panel at some point, it's been breaking the tabs. Dave's newest rendition is using some metal pieces for those prongs to try to give some extra strength to allow the hatch to stay on. So the big problem with the Von Jet right now is the hatch. If that can be solved, then it would become a printable option. And then my own contribution to the new world of hamster balls is what I call the Weir Sphere. This is a little project I started after DroidCon last year because y'all are very bad influences of how I spend my time and money. That's why there's a cute mini Dalek here. And this idea was because, one, I thought it'd be cool to have a BB9E option for Weir. And this is also a test to see if I can make a 3D printed option for the Hamster drive. So my design, basically it allows the ball to still be contained as two hemispheres. And the way you close the ball is you actually attach the 4 circle panels to get in and out. The reason I did that was, one, it hides an access point. It gives kind of a uniform strength all around. And it allows me to take my Hamster drive in and out without having to do a ship in the bottle type thing. Downsides to this, it does take 16 screws to get in and out because, 4 screws per panel. Insert Apollo 1 reference here. And I haven't fully tested this yet. I've done some testing at home, at work, where it's more of this hotel carpet. Later on, I'll try to open this up and see if he operates on the carpet here. Partially because he's not going to be shiny after that, because he'll pick up scuff marks, because that's the problem with a BB9E in general anyway. But if I can make this work, then we can adapt the panels to a BB8 and even then have swappable options. I knew I was going to do this for this panel, but I forgot, and other things came up. Was I wanted to make one panel that was going to just be an 8-ball, so that, we could just roll them around and show like, hey, we can swap them out. Like if I had the BB8 one ready, I would have loved to make like the Pride ones for the upcoming Pride Parade in my town. So we'll see if it works. Now, is a hamster or axle drive right for you? Like every engineering thing, there's pros and cons with everything. And also, I just want to point out, in this picture is Matt Hobbs' axle drive and my Droid Weir, which is the Hamster drive, which you can see visually, there's not anything you can really tell from the outside. People are still going to be, oh my God, it's BB-8. So axle drive has some big advantages, which are good selling points. In fact, every now and then I keep getting tempted to build one for myself. The movement is closer to the film. If you look at the puppets that Brian Hearing and Dave Chapman operate, as they're a wheel, basically kind of a wheelbarrow looking thing, the axle drive mimics that movement. It's also how they did the red carpet droid. So if you want the movement authenticity, an axle drive is how you want to go. They're a bit easier to stabilize because the mechanisms are already there. You have a motor for forward, backwards. You have a servo for left, right. So you already have the mechanisms there to stabilize. You just have to run your code. With the Hamster drives, I have no roll authority. So I'm stabilized in pitch, but I have nothing to, I can't manually shift my weight left and right to, balance and roll. So that's like weird when you see him. Like I said, he always looks like Jack Sparrow and has kind of a drunken wobble. Light and sound, the Hamster drive also has the advantage, the axle drive has the advantage of I can put lights in the ball because I can run the wires. You can't do that with a Hamster drive because you can't run over the wires. Some people have tried it by just putting like super bright LEDs on the Hamster mechanism itself and having transparent windows. The problem is if they're not directional, you're just going to see that light through all the seams and it's going to look like the core of Chernobyl. And the fact is there's a huge support group for the axle drives. Like you'll see today, there's a bunch of people building Carbon, so they're all learning and being able to ask questions, where right now, like, you're welcome to contact me about questions about Hamster drive, but there's not many Hamster drives to just go by and base your design on yet. The Hamster mechanism, though, why I still stick with it, it can be built without servos. Servos have been a big pain in the butt for me. Dio is driving me crazy, especially with, trying to balance the torque and movement and stuff and avoiding chatter in Arduino. The two drive motors on my Weir droid work fine. I get the movement. So it was, for me, a much simpler mechanism. In fact, I was able to build him with no 3D modeling, no 3D printing, no aluminum laser cutting. Like, he literally is built out of wood. I don't think you could really make an axle drive out of, hand cut wood. If you could, all props to you, because you got a level of accuracy I don't have. If you're coming from an R2-D2, it keeps the mechanism super similar. If you've already built an R2-D2 or chopper, you've already done a tank drive system. You know how speed controllers work. You know how RC work. So you already know the basic stuff. You just have to now take that next step of learning Arduino to kind of stabilize them. And that's if you even want them to stabilize. The two biggest points that keep me on the Hamster drive, one is the ball weathers evenly. So the axle drives, only one ring on your ball is ever going to make contact with the ground. So over time, you start wearing that ring into your drive system. So you start noticing, okay, here's exactly where I make contact with the ground. Especially if you drive it on hard surfaces, you're going to notice that very quickly. Where he's never been repainted because the whole ball is getting scuffed up at the same rate. So he has plenty of scratches and scuff marks, but they're all going in different directions. So he's weathering super even. He's aging probably better than I am, actually. And the other big thing is you can turn on point. So for an axle drive system, you have to bank when you turn, which means you have a minimum turning radius. And if you want to try to turn on point, you have to use like a flywheel in there and a counterweight and trying to get that angle of, okay, I'm looking this way and now I want to look that way is super tricky. With where my droid, I can roll up to a person, do a 180 and go the other way without even thinking about it. In fact, my droid, I can operate with like one thumb on the controller instead of, that like Fire Sky DJ booth a lot of the other droid builders are using nowadays. So a little bit of in conclusion. Now, when I give prop building panels, I always like to include this little montage of R2-D2s in the top here. There is no right way to build a droid, and there's no right way to build a BB-8. So like an R2-D2, you'll see here we have wood droids, we have aluminum droids, we have 3D printed droids. Back in the day, we had a lot of styrene droids, and you'll see someone built one out of a trash can and a Roomba. There's multiple ways to do this. You have to find the method that's going to work for you. You want to figure out how do you want to drive it, what tools you have available, what challenges you want to figure out. And at the end of the day, whatever mechanism you go with, you still made a magic ball that's going to bring a bunch of joy to people. So if you're looking for more information on BB-8s, the best place to go is the BB-8 Builders Club on the Facebook page. It's regularly updated with builds. A lot of us, share like how our drive systems are doing. If you want to follow my work personally, I'm on Instagram at A7L Props. I'm slowly working on making tutorials and video write-ups available this year. And if you want to see more of David's droids, he's on Instagram at Trick Productions. So I hope you all found that informative, and I'll open the floor to questions.
Anyone have any questions? Oh, bring it around. He was asking what type of magnets you use to keep your dome on.
I'm just using the heavy duty Neo rare earth magnets. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. Okay, so that's another thing with my Hamster drive system. Now, I'm not puppeteering the head independent of the drive system. So if you're going to do that, you need the lowest amount of force holding the head on, because it's this balance of you need to hold the head on, but if it's so it doesn't fall off. But if it's too tight, it becomes a brake. Now my droid, he's basically built like a tank. He's got, basically R2-D2 motors in him propelling him. He's got about 30 pounds of just dead weight on him for ballast. And I have, My magnets are actually based on the old DMM system that the club was originally doing. So I have a 2-inch, half-inch thick magnet in the center here, which, could break my hand. This is not from this. And then I have 3 1-inch magnets with the matching magnets in the ball. Now that actually was, other than the stabilization loop itself, that was the most painful part of my build, because it's like I have to drive it, change the spacing, drive them again, change the spacing, drive them again, change the spacing. I think I spent 2 weeks just drive, open them up. I'm, the weird, the polycarbonate sphere you see here is taped closed. So the thing you actually keep it closed with is just the clear Gorilla tape. So when you actually, I don't know how many of you have met me at other cons, I have a roll of tape on my belt at any given time in case I have to go in and reclose the ball. So that's another case where if Gorilla stops making it, Weir needs a new ball. So my head compared to any of the other BB-8s is significantly stronger. Last year I was kind of laughing, I was looking at Size Droid, and I'm like, can I, and that droid puppeteers wonderfully. It literally looks like it's straight out of the movie. And I'm like, can I see how the head comes off? And it was so light, it's like, if I sneeze on this thing, I feel like it's gonna roll off. Where mine, you almost would swear it's bolted on. In fact, I've had a few people like, you're lying to me that this is magnets because I'm gonna break the thing.
Our main problem is we're having photo ops that
Mm-hmm.
and kids are just breathe on it. Next thing we see a head of one now.
Yeah. It's so touchy, and that's the other thing I mentioned with the spacing thing, because I tried building a Axle droid several years ago because I wanted that. So kind of history of my 9 years with the BB-8s. I built Weir. You take them out, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, it's a working BB-8," because we're still well into the point like no one had seen fan-made BB-8s. Like, he was just unique. And then over the years, it's like, well, I see Matt's droid, I see Christie's droid, and I'm like, man, I need to up my game and do what their droids do. So then I started trying to build my own little axle drive system, but for me, it just got frustrating because it was the ship in the bottle thing where like his Hamster, I can just plop on the bench, do what I need to, plop it back in there. The Von Jet, it's so many screws which are on the inside of the ball to try to get it's a pain in the butt to get the mechanism in and out. And then if it's not centered, the distance change, because magnetic force is exponential. So if it's just in the wrong place, the head falls off. Mine is built like a tank because of the polycarbonate, the 2 wheels. So I've never actually had a kid knock it off. I've had sometimes where that mechanism got jammed and the head fell off, but I've never had a kid knock it off. And honestly, when it does fall off, I have just a bag of extra antennas to plop in there. On that note, so where I kind of abandoned doing the axle mechanism, other than the fact it was driving me crazy, was I looked back and it's like, well, Weir was the first droid at DroidCon. He's in the Star Wars Celebration 2017 promo video. So he's actually been driven by Brian Hearing. He's been directed by the people who have worked on the movies. I'm looking at all the pictures of people who got. There's actually a bunch of droid builders here who have come up like, oh, I got into my stuff because I met your BB-8. I'm like, I'm just going to keep him going. So, he may be like that goofy Mercedes 3-wheel thing. That's the first car. But yeah, does he work as great as my Mach-E? No, but he's still a BB-8. And to this day, he still brings droid where he goes. So that's like, I'm just keeping him running.
Any more questions? I mean, we got the noisy group in the back. I don't know. Do you guys have questions back there, or you just been talking the whole time?
I just wanted to congratulate you on getting through the presentation with minimal jokes about your balls.
Yeah, I kind of figured that.
Wow. And on that note, we got taken down by YouTube.
Oh no, I actually got a good story for that. So because not ball related, but it's a good story this morning because I'm sure everybody's had this issue where you go to Home Depot and you know someone asks you, "What are you working on?" and you go, "Don't ask." Well, we were talking about a carbon drive in the hallway, and the carbon drive for the ballast, it just uses steel plates. Laser cut steel plates, you just bolt it off. So it doesn't need the lead shot. Because like Weir's ballast right now originally was dumbbells, but now I have a 3D printed shell, and then I put lead weight and epoxy in it. So I was talking about the story of, like it's that same thing. So, you go to Cabela's, you order lead shot, and then, the person at the counter is going to be like, well, what are you loading? And your instinct is to say, don't ask about it. Yeah, and now they're hitting the button under the thing because they're like, okay, what are you trying to blow up?
All right. Anybody else have a question? If not, let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 15 minutes till the next one. Thank you.
All right, thank you all. If you're all interested in Snuggles, I'll try to show him off during show and tell.